So hello and welcome back to another Loose Heads podcast in association with Talking Rugby Union. I'm your host, Chris Heal. It's brilliant to have you tuning in once again and hope you're enjoying listening to these podcasts in the wonderful weather that we're having at the moment. So grab yourself a drink and settle into this podcast because we've got a very special guest this afternoon. Normally we record these on a Friday afternoon, and as I've just said there, the weather's pretty nice where we're recording it. And normally myself, Mark, Dave and Rob, who obviously Mark, Dave and Rob are the co-founders of Loose Heads, take a professional view and we stay professional while we're recording a podcast. But we have got a gin and tonic today, guys, haven't we?
Yeah, we have indeed. We have indeed.
How are they going down on this Friday afternoon in the sunshine?
A bit too well, I think.
Too well, yeah.
Well, we're not alcoholics, so there's a very good reason why we've got gin and tonics on a Friday afternoon, because our guest has been thoroughly enjoying his gin and tonics during this lockdown while he's been obviously doing the hard work of hosting the Loose Heads Instagram Lives. It's a very big pleasure to welcome Loose Heads ambassador, Harlequins legend, and a man who's part of BT Sports' superb rugby coverage. It is Ugo Monye. Ugo, thanks very much for joining us this afternoon.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I just saw Dave's iWatch just pop up there, and I think he's probably most deserving of it because you've almost closed all your rings, which means you've been really active today. So
it's the bonus of having a 3-year-old dog. He sits whimpering until I've walked him 4 or 5 miles a day, so I don't get a lot of choice in it.
Fair play. Well, gin and tonics all round. However, I have let the side down. I'm with a Coke Zero today, but give it an hour, give it a couple of hours, I'll be on to the pink gin and tonics too.
We can give you time now, Ugo, if you want to hop to the fridge or...
I tell you what, that's a great idea. It just doesn't make for a great podcast if we just get silence for 2 minutes.
The magic of editing. The magic of editing.
So I'm more than up with this for now.
Okay, brilliant. Ever the professional, Ugo. Ever the professional. So yeah, like we said there, obviously, Ugo, you're now a Loose Heads ambassador, which was announced very recently. And Rob, just to go to you first to introduce, obviously, why you chose Ugo to be a Loose Heads ambassador, because we talked off air then about how much influence Ugo's had with the Loose Heads Instagram Lives and all the other stuff he's been doing for you guys. So why was Ugo a perfect fit for you?
Yeah, it's great to have someone like Ugo involved with Loose Heads. It really gives us that credibility. If you see people like Ugo involved with Loose Heads and connect that link to mental health awareness, it shows that we really mean business when it comes to opening up the conversation. And just on that, it wasn't the first time I'd sort of met Ugo as well. So back at school, my team got to the Daily Mail Cup final, the final against Wellington at Twickenham, where we won 10-7. But little old Wilmslow that day beat Wellington. A great day, and Ugo gave me the medal that day, which was class. I sent over the photo as well when we first initially had the chat about Loose Heads, which we had a bit of a laugh about. I was actually thinking about this earlier. I hope you didn't actually watch the game, because I think I had the worst ever game in my school career. Only job as a fullback is to catch the ball, and I think I dropped the high ball twice that day.
Mate, I've been there. Don't worry.
Both went backwards, so it's fine, I guess. But no, having Ugo on board is absolutely fantastic for us. He's such a big name in rugby.
Yeah, well, I think Sean Edwards enjoyed sort of your defensive stories from that game, Rob.
Yeah. It's nice to speak defence with one of the best coaches in the world.
I love Sean. I genuinely love that guy. I think the person you are often transfers onto the pitch. He was the very same as a player, uber competitive, and he's the same as a coach. I was lucky enough to work in 2009, and the one thing I took away from it is not only is he just technically just so brilliant, but his passion, his desire, and just everything about it so geared and focused towards defence that there's not been many coaches where I've gone into a Monday morning review knowing you've missed a tackle and genuinely just scared. And that Sean was one of those coaches, because he took it personally. You might have missed the tackle because it was a total mismatch, size, weight, speed, whatever it is. And you're fearing for your life, because Sean's like, why did you do that? And it's a case of like, why would you do that against me? Like, why would you let me down in that way? And I think that is a motivation for any player taking the pitch. Hence why he's been one of the most successful coaches we've ever had in these shores. It's just a shame he's never got the top job at the RFU. I've got to say, whenever I bow at the game and we look back at coaches we've had, of course, we've got a brilliant coaches in John Mitchell and Eddie Jones, but you just feel as if the RFU may have missed the trick not employing Sean at some point.
You did mention the other day on our podcast as well that, you know, wing was the hardest position to defend.
You're compromised, you're exposed, a little bit like a goalkeeper, I think. Goalkeeper's one-on-one, and either the ball goes into the back of the net, you make a brilliant save, and I think that's the fine margin which you live in on the wing, and your position's often so compromised because it's not just plain sailing. We know the game of rugby is so fluid, but you might be put into a difficult position, not because of your positioning, but because of what may have happened 2 or 3 phases before, whether there's an overlap, whether the blokes and wingers working hard knife, what the fullback's doing. So you're forever compromised, and that's why I think the best wingers not only able just to be able to like live in the moment and make decisions. We're talking split-second decisions. The picture which was there half a second ago may not exist half a second later. And then to be able to adapt, have that communication, and then pick the right man and make the right tackle. I think you're just thinking about quite a lot of things. So it is a difficult position. I'm glad he said that, because if I say it, it's totally biased. But I love defending. It was a big part of my game, and I learned a huge amount from Sean.
I mean, we're only a few minutes into this podcast, but we've gone straight into the rugby detail about positioning and things like that. So I guess who go over this sort of 8-week period. You've been missing rugby like all of us so much, but obviously it's been such a massive part of your life, and it's just been sort of taken away from us. How are you sort of dealing with that aspect at the moment?
First couple of weeks, I genuinely struggled just because I love my job. I'm really passionate about my job, and it helped me retire. It really helped me retire in that transition, just mentally, because you've been a part of this thing and you've dedicated your whole life, your whole being, and it's been a part of who you are. And my week, although I probably work 3 days a week, just say for BT, and I do the podcast on a Monday at the BBC, the rest of it, you're reading articles, you're on the phone, you're prepping, I'm watching footage to make sure that when we go live, whether it's a game or a podcast or whatever I'm doing, I can speak with real authority and I'm really clued up. So it does take up a large part of your week. You have that taken out of it, and all of a sudden you feel a little bit naked, you feel a little bit bare. And I missed that, not just from a work sense, but almost from a chemical sense. I was having this chat the other week. I think when you retire, there's certain things which you miss, the endorphins, the ability to know that you're achieving something every single week, but more so than anything, that adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
It's hard to replace that. And I genuinely get a buzz when I commentate. You know, you think of the big games, fireworks going off, you look down the team sheet and you feel like, wow, this is going to be, I can't wait for that head-to-head or for this to happen. You've already kind of, the same what I would visualise a game before I played a game, you visualise it before you commentate on it. And so all of that just went out of your system, just like that. So yeah, I have missed it. But, you know, of course, just like everyone, you understand the situation you're in and you kind of settle into your new life. And I've kind of gone from like full-time rugby pundit to a full-time dad with chatting about rugby part-time, probably still to a level which my miss is not quite happy with. So I'm eager, I'm keen, just as everyone is, to get rugby back up and running.
I guess sort of the loose heads Instagram lives as well, Hugo, have kind of fed that hunger for rugby to come back. But I know you've been doing the FIFA challenge as well for BT Sport. I guess that's not quite the same as the adrenaline rush you were talking about there.
I've not played FIFA for about 10 years, and I'm captain of the Red Roses, which comprised of Danny Kerr, Anthony Watson, Ellis Genge. I mean, that's been fun. That's just literally me just having fun and stepping into a new territory. But the Instagram lives of Looseheads have been great. But the one thing I miss about rugby is being part of the team and just like having that just inane, like rubbish banter in the change room. And as much as we're obviously out there trying to raise awareness of mental health, it's been great just to chat to the lads. Like Jamie Roberts, we chatted to him on Sunday. I've not spoken to him in ages. So when I'm asking the question, how are you doing? I'm not saying that because it's a list of questions I've got to get through. It's because I want to know, like, how are you? Like, what's going on? James Haskell the same, and one of my best mates, Danny Caron, but also like Elton Yanchis. He's someone I've done a little bit of work with when he played for the Barbarians. I think it was last year or the year before, but I don't really know the bloke. So when I'm asking about his last year and how South Africa have helped rejuvenate and give hope to a nation, I'm really interested, you know. So I've loved that from a selfish perspective, but then also understanding these players who are in a privileged position to be able to affect people's lives, and the messages which are coming out are really strong. So it's actually just been really nice for me, myself, and hopefully for the thousands of people that have been tuning in, that they've really got something beneficial out of it too.
I'm sure you can echo that, Mark, that a lot of people have been benefiting from the chats that Ugo's been having with some of these big stars in the game.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a struggle for my generation to understand what Instagram is, and they've taken 3 weeks to get used to it. But actually, to be fair, when they have got used to it, they're all properly engaged with it. We're here in a privileged position talking to Ugo. Ugo's a proper professional, not just a professional rugby player, but he's a professional presenter. And he does that. He makes it seem like it's effortless. And I think that's the trick. We all know it's not effortless. It takes an awful lot of input. So we're delighted to be associated with Ugo Monye.
Dave, I've got to say, some of the questions that Ugo's had to read out on the quiz, they're very, very difficult. And for me, they're very tough.
I must admit, when we were putting a few of them together, particularly some of the names from Russia and Japan, we wasted breath. But in fairness, he got through them, and you did bloody well.
Oh, mate, 2 gins down, having to pronounce Georgia, the Russian's name. I was like, wow. But it was great. I've actually nicked some of those questions. We had a BT Sport quiz a couple of weeks ago, and I robbed a couple of those. So thank you. I'll tell you one thing that lockdown must have brought to everyone in this country. Everyone's IQ and ability to be able to rattle their way through quizzes and general knowledge has gone through the roof. Because, like everyone, I'm sure we've all been on countless Zoom quiz nights.
And just to go to more the serious side of things, Ugo, with Rob mentioned there how much of a privilege it is to have you on board with Loose Heads. But what was kind of the first sort of notice that you had of Loose Heads, and why did you want to get involved personally with the guys?
I've actually seen some of the branding out there on Twitter. I'm obviously very aware of some of the ambassadors that they work with, and I guess more than anything, the one that triggered me to it was just I was actually having a conversation with Mauro Itoje last summer. I'm actually in the process of setting up a foundation with the RFU, and just wanted to challenge current players and myself. Because when I move on from my job, when I retired, the fact is, as much as people pump up your ties and you've got a great CV and you've got loads of medals and trophies and wins and all these amazing stats, there will be someone to replace you. There will be another one. So the question is, like, what will be your legacy? Like, what's it going to be? How can you affect people outside of your game? And last summer was a really good summer. I think some great examples out of that. So I remember looking at Coco Graf, played at Wimbledon. You know, amazing. You've got this teenager playing at Wimbledon, and as much as her talent is undisputed, she's having a real impact and effect outside of that. I look at Lewis Hamilton. He won Silverton for a record amount of times. I looked at Ripano, the USA women's captain. They won another World Cup. And there's a long list of achievers. Jofra Archer, his story of where he came from to then playing in a World Cup and everything which he's done. You look at, I'm not going to forgive myself for this. Cricketer, tattoo, unbelievable, super over.
Stokes.
Sorry?
Ben Stokes.
Ben Stokes.
His story of just redemption. So I guess the message was, as much as these guys and girls are super talented, it's actually their story which has the ability to be able to transcend sport. So I just got thinking about the legacy that I want to live, and that's obviously quite a big word. Almost sounds quite grand, and I don't mean it in that terms at all. But I guess what I want to get, what I'm trying to say is, you know, there will be another Murrow, there will be another Owen Farrell, there will be another me, there'll be another one of all of us. But what can you actually do which have a far greater impact in the career that you ever had? And there's topics which are often difficult to talk about. And actually removing that stigma and raising awareness for issues like mental health, because to a certain degree, we all suffer from it, whether you're aware of it or not. In reflection, you might look back at a few years and think, oh, that was the time where I really struggled. I didn't quite know what it was, and I wasn't able to tackle it in a meaningful way. So that's why I wanted to be a part of this, because there's lots of guys, and I'm fortunate enough to have retired and still enjoying what I do, but I know with rugby players especially, but I think it actually applies to all sportsmen and women. They'll either suffer mentally, financially, or physically. And I've got friends that have suffered all three, who need hip replacements, have no money, and then that cycle then turns into mental health and disaster. So what can we do? How can we start a conversation? How can we get people feeling happy about having these conversations and feeling that it's not emasculated in any kind of way? So that was really why, that was fairly long-winded, but that was the reason why I wanted to get involved in it. And I kind of think, you know, you've already spoken about it through your apparel and selling T-shirts and hoodies. It's called streetwear, and I think that targets a certain demographic. It's cool the way in which your social media set up, and it's engaging to that younger demographic once again, that generation X or Z or whatever it's called these days. So being able to speak to those guys, I think is really, really important. And I think Looseheads do it, not just because there's lots of great mental health charities out there, but I think Looseheads do it in quite a unique fashion as well. So that's exactly why I wanted to be a part of it. Sorry, that was really long, but yeah, quite a long story of the reason why to come into here where I am today. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was going to say, definitely, Hugo. I mean, you talk...
There, that's a full endorsement there.
Yeah, yeah.
You've got to be more than just your talent. Like, you have to be, because go back 10 years ago, there were superstars. Johnny Wilson's a superstar. Before him, there was a superstar. There's going to be another one. Owen Farrell took the shirt off Johnny, and then someone's going to take the shirt off Owen, and that's great. You go down to history, you go back to your clubs, and you'll be on the honours board. That's great, but is that all you want to be remembered for, or do you want to do something a bit more meaningful? I'm not to say playing for England, playing the Premiership, winning trophies isn't meaningful. That's great, but other guys and girls are going to go and do that as well. Do something out of your comfort zone and actually have an impact on society.
Absolutely, Hugo. You mentioned sort of those people before doing the Instagram lives, and, you know, the people like Jimmy Gopperth, etc., being able to talk about, you know, their experiences, why it's important to raise awareness for mental health. And I mean, you guys on the BBC Rugby Union Weekly, right at the start of the year, and right, Hugo, you and Danny Kerr and Chris Ashens talked really well about the use of social media and the links to mental health. And we touched on there that Looseheads use social media so well to promote what they're doing, but. Yeah. I think it was around the time that Danny Cipriani said it was important to talk about mental well-being, and you guys opened up about your personal experience is on social media and the mental health aspects around that. Just how important is it to focus on social media and try and use it in a positive way when it comes to mental health awareness?
Well, it's kind of a juxtaposition, isn't it, social media? Because the word social would almost make you believe that it's a nice, happy place to be, but often, especially Twitter's a cesspit. It allows and gives people a platform to project positivity in a way which Looseheads do, but also allows people to be faceless and attack people in a cowardly manner. And that's the part where I think there needs to be far better governance for and accountability. There was a story just the other week of Ian Wright and how he got racially attacked. And you know, Ian Wright's a tough bloke. You know, he's gone through a lot in his life and he's achieved a huge amount, but you can't tell me that's not affected him. So I just wanted to shine a light, and I shared some personal stories about me, and my wife and I unfortunately had a miscarriage, and then, you know, I went and commentated. I found out just before I commentated on the game, you commentate on the game, and you know, my head's in a million and one places, probably not at Allianz Park that day, but you try and crack on and do your job, and then just as you do out of habit, you go onto Twitter and you're just getting abuse. You're thinking, really? Like, really? In fact, I had a pop add a pop. I'll mention them, Rugby Done. I think they do some brilliant stuff. But they put a post on Facebook, which I don't follow them on Facebook. I rarely use it. But a couple of my friends screenshotted it saying, mate, they're coming after you. So I had a look at the article, went onto Facebook, and it was a picture of me in the classic old school purple England shirt after my performance against Argentina. Undoubtedly the worst performance I ever had in my whole life. I'm not talking about professional life, like talking under 13s. I just never played a worse game. I came out straight after the game. I remember the press officer saying, do you want to do media? I said, absolutely. I'll do media if I got man of the match. So I'm going to do it when I'm crap. Came out, said I was awful. And their article was about the top 3 worst performances of all time. And they suggested that my performance was up there as well. and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. It's my job to critique as well as, pat people on the back as well. But I actually replied to them and said, why during a period of total uncertainty when people are struggling, hours after Mental Health Awareness Week has just finished, where the whole nation's behind it and trying to project positivity, why would you have an article like this? And it's not because I was embarrassed about it. You've only got to put it into Google and you can see it for yourself, and everyone wants to have a good giggle. Go and search for it and have a laugh. But why is there a need for people to project negativity out there during a time when people are really struggling? There's a million and one topics you could talk about. Everyone needs to create more content, more so than ever, because there isn't rugby to talk about. Talking about rugby without there being rugby. But for me, it's far easier to be able to knock people down than big them up. And I just wanted to question their rationale. It was just so bizarre. Shock horror, they didn't reply back to me, because that's what people like that do, because they're cowards. And this isn't a pop at Rugby Done. This is just in general. I just don't understand the need for that behaviour. But then if you're allowed to behave in a certain way and get no repercussions, why would you ever stop? So it's trying to educate those people, but also support the people that are deeply affected by it.
Yeah, 100%, Hugo. And I mean, the work that you're doing for Lucez just echoes exactly why it's important to talk about mental health awareness. So as Rob and the guys have said, it's brilliant to have you on the podcast today and talk about sort of the work you're doing with Lucez. But if you don't mind now going on to sort of your rugby career, if you don't mind, Hugo. And I mean, it's sort of, for you, we had Sean Edwards on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about doing athletics and rugby at the same time. And he said he was doing 400 metres at school, and then it was rugby for him. And was it sort of similar for you in terms of athletics and rugby at the time when you were starting out in the sport?
Yeah, massively. I wanted to be a footballer. I wanted to play for Arsenal. And then I went to a posh school who didn't play football. They said it was for chavs. So I was like, fair enough. Right, rugby it is. So I took my barber jacket off and put my rugby jersey on, and that was that. That they laid the pathway for me to become a rugby player. But I guess with rugby and athletics, it kind of dovetailed quite well, because obviously the sport's seasonal, and the one thing I've learned and everyone's aware of is that lots of the skills are transferable, especially when you play on the wing. So the athletics season was really important for athletics, but then it massively helped me when I went into the rugby season. I loved it, but at some point you've got to make a decision. You can't inject all your energy into just one field and into both fields and be. That's my baby screaming, if you can hear it. If you want to reach the top of your game. So had some trials at Harlequins, and they offered me a contract, and I thought at the time I'd be stupid to take it. I was stupid not to take it. Stupid not to take it. And I guess that's where the path to professional rugby really started for me.
Because Mark mentioned yesterday you were the same school as Johnny Wilkinson, if that's right, Hugo. So there was rugby quite a mainstay at the school then in terms of sport?
It's quite a small rugby school, got to say, but they've actually produced lots of good rugby players. So at one time, Peter Richards, former England scrum half, was the number 9 to Johnny Wilkinson. Like, that's a decent halfback combo at schoolboy level. I think they got to the semi-finals of Daily Mail Cup. Charlie Amesbury, who played for Harlequins, I think he went on to Newcastle, was there. Steve Bates, he was a chemistry teacher at Lord Ormsworth College. He was the guy who scouted Johnny Wilson, took him up to Newcastle Falcons. So they got a fairly rich rugby history, but we used to love rugby at school. And I remember being a schoolboy, age 15, stood on the sideline with the bin from your dormitory, and some utensil, just using it as a drum just to cheer along like the first 15. So like playing for the first 15 was, I guess, the equivalent of like playing for the first team NFL out in America, just to a far lesser degree. We didn't have 100,000 people cheering us on. We had a few parents, a few dogs, and a few school kids, but we loved it. It was a huge sense of kudos if you played for the first team. I've still got my first 15 jersey. It means that much to me. So yeah, it was a big part of it. But I also learned, I didn't always adopt, but I learned some really good habits from Johnny at school. He was an unbelievable student as well as professional sportsman. And he's one of those annoying people where journalists will speak to you, have you got any dirty secrets of him? Have you got anything like this? Like, he went out of the head girl. He was an A-grade student. He was in the first team for cricket, played basketball, was unbelievable quite clearly at rugby as well. And some of his habits were just, in inverted commas, abnormal as a teenager. Aged 15, whilst we were dossing around in our break time, his dad would come in and he would practice his goal kicking. He'd practice his kicking out of hand after school, after rugby training. He'd be out on the pitch practicing all of his like rugby specific drills. And we looked at it, didn't pay much attention, and funnily enough, not all of us went on to kick a winning drop goal and win a World Cup. But you can see from an early age, just when you kind of work back from that drop goal to him being a 15-year-old kid, there's absolutely no surprise as to why he achieved the things he did, because part of it's talent, of course, but in terms of desire and just having that level of motivation, that's something you can't quite teach, I don't think.
Yeah, and I guess, Rob, as well, we might have had that same sort of element with Sam James, because me and Rob went to the same school as Sam, here we go, and he was sort of a class above the rest, wasn't he, Rob?
He was, yeah. He always used to be able to pass the ball from one side of the pitch to the other. I always remember that.
Ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Yeah, he was just ridiculous. An alien.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned as well there, Hugo, sort of you were 15, you were playing for the first 15 at school, and I've been right in saying, and just a few years later, you were part of the England 7 setup, if that's right. That must have been some experience for you to come out of school and be part of that experience.
That was mental. Like, genuinely, it was crazy. But once again, it was a real good opportunity for me off the back of a negative. So we had England under-19 trials, and I turned up, and we had guys like Marcel Garvey, James Bailey, who had done all the age grade rugby. I'd never done age grade rugby. Played for Hampshire 16s, but not a national level. And I turned up, and I trained really well for the 3 days that we were there. We had a game at the end and played well, and I scored, and I didn't make the England under-19 squad, and I just thought that just wasn't fair. I was really, really frustrated. I worked so hard to get to that point, but I wanted more, so I didn't get picked. Anyway, I think the week following, I played for the second team against the British Army out at Aldershot, and the fields there are horrific. The coach at the time, I think it was Joe Lydon, right. He came and watched, and I scored a couple of tries, and he spoke to Mark Evans, our CEO, and went, we like it, we really like him. And Mark was really nice about me and gave me a glow report. Next thing you know, I'm off to Brisbane business class to play for England Sevens. I was like, what is this? Like, this is nuts. A, I've never turned left on a plane. B, I've never been to Australia. And C, how have I just been upgraded out of the England under-19s to play on the World 7 Series? And it was a remarkable week, just getting to explore the country, be part of this institution and be part of the World 7 Series. It's just amazing. And then we won. We won our first ever World 7 Series tournament, and I got player of the series. So it was just like, this is a bit of a turnaround. So that was just a nuts week. I landed on the Monday. Funnily enough, I got called by England under-19 to say, oh, you're back in the squad. Just started against Scotland at the weekend. So I played against Scotland, scored 2, and I was a bit like, actually, when they called me, I was a bit like, you know, I was that same player just 2 weeks ago, but you chose to ignore it. So anyway, it's fine. I love proving people wrong. Scored 2 tries in my debut. It was just unbelievable. But those years of playing in the 7 Series was a brilliant pathway to understand what it's like to play on a big test arena. Obviously, 7s is so intense, a little bit like a goldfish bowl. There is no hiding place. And I had to accelerate my learning quite quickly. You go from Brisbane to New Zealand, I played in a Hong Kong 7s, things I was watching on TV, and players, you're in amongst legends of the game. So that as an experience from like 19 through to 21, 22 was just unbelievable. Travel the world, like, how cool is that?
Absolutely. I mean, did that experience kind of help you gain more confidence with Harlequins, then, Hugo? Because, I mean, the impact you had when you first got there was incredible. It was quite easy for everyone to see that talent you had, and you're obviously playing in the 2nd tier as well to help Harlequins get back into the Premiership. But from a personal point of view, did your 7s experience and all that had with it help you really kick on at Harlequins?
It did. The one thing I had to learn quite quick is 7 to 15 to different games. And I was a young player just playing on instinct. I got the ball in 7s, and every time I caught the ball, I thought I'd score. In 15s, it's not quite the same.
The stats say differently, though, Hugo.
There's times, age 19, where you just wanted to counter-attack 5 minutes of your try line, which is exciting for people watching in, but it's not going to impress your national coach. So as much as it probably brought the best out of my natural talent, it did also make me realise that not only have you got to be a good athlete, you've got to be a good student of the game. And so accelerated that learning for sure. But I loved it. You know, you're just young. No one's got any expectations. People don't really know who you are, which is great. So I just used my natural talent to be able to do the things I was doing back then. And the confidence I got from playing 7s and winning trophies. Hadn't won anything, you know, at that point. But then travel around the world, you're winning tournaments, you're feeling unbeatable. So that kind of confidence, which I was able to take onto the 15th pitch, really helped me for sure.
And I touched on there about Quins playing in the 2nd tier, and I think around the time that Saracens' relegation was confirmed this year, Hugo, you guys on the podcast talked about sort of how much you kind of enjoyed playing the Championship. I mean, how much should English rugby value the 2nd tier at the moment? I know the sort of the funding's being cut and et cetera, but it is such a great breeding ground for players and players to learn the skills as well.
Yeah, players, coaches, and referees. I loved my time eventually in the Championship. I didn't want to get relegated with Harlequins. I just got selected in 2005 for my first England tour. So I felt my career was going one way and the club was doing another thing. And I asked to leave and the club wouldn't let me leave. But then I look at the Championship as the birthplace for a lot of the English qualified and Harlequins legends that we see now. So your Mike Browns, your Chris Robshaws, your Joe Marlers, Jordan Turner-Halls, Danny Cares, all of us were able just to use that year with just that fun. We developed our identity, our Quinn style, or that's what we called it anyway. So it was a brilliant experience. I think the Championship needs to be respected. It probably could do with better funding, but you're not able to do, the RFU have an unbelievable task of trying to cut their cloth accordingly. Where I'd like to see the game grow is actually in amongst the university games. I look at what they do college football in America. Imagine if we had a system or a league that could resemble something similar to that. Lots of people go to uni to play rugby, whether it's as a pathway into the Championship and then into the Premiership, or they do it for a social level. But imagine, I look at some Championship games and I reckon there's some big university games that are getting bigger crowds.
Yeah,
and if we can amplify that more and fund it more, then that could be a superb league in isolation or a superb pathway into the professional game as well.
I think Alex Dombrand would probably echo that view. He came from Cardiff Met and he's burst onto the scene, hasn't he?
He's had a phenomenal year, and he is the kind of bloke who you can take inspiration from. I think there's so many stories like Alex Dombrand. Nick Easter was another one who didn't get a professional contract at age 26, won 50 caps for his country, went to 2 or 3 World Cups, captained them, won premierships. So there are stories out there, and I think the more we can actually and we've got the biggest player pool in the world, but if we can even just open our perspective a little bit more as coaches to almost cherry pick and pluck out some of these hidden gems, I think could be superb. But if we could get funded in the university game, I think it would be an unbelievable product.
Definitely. Couldn't agree with you more on that, Hugo. And you mentioned sort of the guys that you managed to get promotion with from the championships. And I saw this week Danny Kerr posted a picture on Twitter with a big trophy of the Premiership 8 years ago this week. I mean, kind of just go back to that moment for us, Hugo. I mean, what are your memories of that final, and how much did it mean to the club because of where the guys had come from that promotion to the Championship to lifting the big trophy in 2012?
Yeah. To have the group of players that all got relegated together, had to endure that, supporters, everyone from the owner all the way down who supported us through Bloodgate, to then winning a title was it was truly incredible, because I use this analogy a lot, but it's not even an analogy, it's a comparison. But the class of 92 Man United, the Nevilles and the Scholes and the Beckhams of this world, I felt like that was our class as well, because they weren't just professional teammates, they were like lifelong friends. And the bond we had in that dressing room, the bond we had in that club was unrivaled. You look at squads nowadays, and in terms of strength and conditioning, tactical awareness, coaching standards are all on an even keel. But the one thing I think sets the top teams apart of the culture and the camaraderie, and it couldn't have been topped. It was the best group of players I've ever been with, and I loved it. Being in the change room afterwards, and knowing for the last decade we've grown up together. I've known all your strengths, your weaknesses. I've known your trials and tribulations. To reach the pinnacle of the English game was just unbelievable. I mean, on a personal level, I tore my hamstring really badly 5 weeks previous, when we played Leicester at home. I think we lost like 44-20. And I was really touch and go to play that final. I spoke to one of the Leicester players after, and he went, "How did you play?" Because one of the coaches was asked to play Cammy in the warm-up. The coach came back, spoke to Richard Cocker, went, "There's no way he's playing." Because my left hamstring was held together with tape. And I tested my hamstring after, had to do physio and all the rest of it. And I have 30% strength in my left hamstring. But there was no way I was not going to play that game. We'd waited almost 150 years as a club to win an English title, to then not be there. Like, you've got to be kidding me. So I think there's some times where your mind takes your body to places it perhaps doesn't want to go, but will just go. And that's why we're chatting today, because we're talking about mental health and mental awareness, and the ability to be able to take control of your mind, whether it's for good or for bad. And in that moment in 2012, I was able to take my body to a place through mental toughness, but I was never going to miss out on that day. And I certainly made sure that I made the most of it that night, and for probably quite a few nights afterwards as well. It was unbelievable.
I was going to say, where was the destination for the summer holiday? Was it Ibiza or Las Vegas, Hugo? Because I know you've been talking about those two places quite a lot recently.
Yeah, I have. So we had a Super Saturday followed by Super Sunday. We had a tour to South Africa with England, and then on that after that, on that holiday, it felt like a holiday. We took a batter, I think, by South Africa, but then we went to Las Vegas after. So Danny Kerr, Jordan Turner-Hall, and myself went to Las Vegas and pulled in a late recruit, Paul Doran-Jones. We went to Las Vegas and just, wow, I think we were there 5 days. It felt like a month. And I remember one of the last days, we ended up at a pool party. We were like pretty hungover, not feeling our best. We'll have a bit, because I'm of the strong opinion, and I'm not advocating drinking irresponsibly. After a hangover, I always think you're 3 beers away from like being back on the horse properly again. Like, the first one's horrific, like just take your time. The second one, third one, you're doing cartwheels again. You're back. You could feel the music. You know, your body's back in sync again. And here we go. And that's what happened that day. And so, like, a bottle turned into a few, and a few bottles of beer turned into some champagne, and we're loving life. And we walked back into the hotel. And if you've ever been to Vegas, like, everything's in the hotels, the restaurants, the bars, the shops, and the tattoo parlours. Walk past the tattoo parlours, like, lads, we're getting tattoos. What are we getting? I don't know. I'll think of something. And we sat in this tattoo parlour, and I scribbled something down. I was like, right, that's what we're getting done. Are we all in? Right, we're in. Bang. I'm lying down in this bed now. The tattoo gun goes, and I'm getting a tattoo. I look around, and the lads aren't there. So I'm panicking. I was like, hey, wait, stop. You've got to finish now. You've started. But lads, I need you to get these done. So I got the other boys in, and I'm not going to tell you what it is, because it's just so embarrassing. But the four of us all got the same matching tattoo in Las Vegas in 2012.
I was hoping you were going to reveal it on the, I think you talked about that with Danny actually on the Rugby Union Weekly, but you didn't reveal it then, and I was hoping this time you were going to reveal it, Hugo, but...
Yeah, we'll save it for another pod, because I'm not even quite sure my mum knows about it.
Okay, yeah.
Because I remember later that summer I did this ad campaign for Molten Brown. I did a lot of work with them, and they were releasing this new shower gel and like lotion and stuff. So I did this like naked photo shoot. So it's like this cringe picture of me stood like looking over my shoulder, like brutal. Anyway, they've got a store up in Regent Street, and they said we're going to have you as a massive poster. And genuinely, they said massive poster. I reckon this thing is 20 foot tall, about 6 foot wide. So sent me the imagery of the store. I was like, whoa, this is like amazing. Just, my mum goes to church at the top of Regent Street, and I did tell her I did it, but I wanted it to be a surprise. And I said, would you mind just popping into Molten Brown, just grab us a couple of bits? Anyway, she walked past and she saw this naked body. She rang me. She was like, son, I've just seen you, Molten Brown. Wow, like, it's amazing. When did you do this? Like, oh, well done, son. You look fantastic, blah, blah, blah. She went, what's that weird writing on your bum? I was like, oh, it's just this logo that they've got. It's all part of the campaign, so I've just like blagged it and bluffed it the whole way. But I've got a picture of all four of us, and I do need to unleash it at some point. But as you can tell, it's not great, because I'm embarrassed still 8 years later.
I'm going to file getting tattoos in Vegas under team camaraderie. Hugo, in terms of, because I'm trying to link it. This is me trying to be professional here and link it to going on tour with the Lions, because I know Jamie Roberts was on the Loose Heads podcast, Loose Heads Instagram Live. On Tuesday, and he talked about how much he fell in love with South Africa. And I know the tour didn't go the way you guys wanted in terms of results, but everyone who's spoken about it, has said it was such a good tour in terms of that team bonding element. Yeah,
it was, when I say it's the best tour I've ever been on, especially from a Lions perspective, it's the only Lions tour I went on, but you speak to the true legends of this game, like your Paul O'Connells, your O'Driscolls, your O'Garas, and they're like, that's the best Lions tour I've ever done, hands down. And it was the last one before the invasion of the camera phone. Like, we straddled two spheres where most definitely had like one toe/foot in the amateur era, plus one massive foot in the professional. Like, we worked really hard. You've got to, like, come on. But that goes without saying. But we made sure that we enjoyed ourselves as well. Like, I'm a firm believer. I'll learn more about someone in the pub in half an hour than I would a season, like in the gym. Yeah. It's the point where you open up, you have those conversations, you develop those bonds, and you work hard. And we loved it. I remember we turned up. What game was it? It must have been, I think we're still playing our warm-up matches, but we must have played a midweek warm-up match. I think we just arrived in Durban. And we said we're all going out. And everyone got on a team bus, like a 50-seater team bus, emblazoned in lines. It was the most inconspicuous team bus ever. Like, everyone knew what it was. We parked up outside the entrance of the nightclub, and we all walked in. Imagine that happening today. It'd be front page. Like, it was ridiculous. I had a funny story, actually, because we got security brief before we went to South Africa. Like, you've got to be careful of this, and go out in numbers, and be careful after dark, and all that kind of stuff. And rightly so. Beautiful country, but every country has its dangers. Went into this nightclub, and there was this like mezzanine level where a few of us having some drinks, and was like spying on the lads, seeing what lads were getting up to on the dance floor. And I saw a couple of familiar faces who were looking quite active on the dance floor. And I got myself with these laser pens, so I like put a dot on one of the lads' heads, like, babe, just saying, I can see you. Next thing you know, bang, they're getting rugby tackled. I was like, what the heck has just happened here? And this is the first point on tour where I knew we had 2 undercover security guards with us. We've been on tour about 4 weeks. They were stealth. This guy gets up, and I'm like, mate, what's happened here? What's happened here? Like, and he said, I just said, mate, I'm just trying to see my mates on the dance floor. But of course, like, a laser on someone's forehead in South Africa often means something totally different. I just had this laser pen, which was good for nothing at that time. So I got a stark warning. As to, I threw that away. I ended up finishing my night with it, but it was a brilliant tour. We did all kinds of amazing trips. I remember we went to a township. Actually, went to a township one day. We finished training. Training went on really late. Meant to go to a township. It's meant to take 45 minutes to get there, but because training went on so late, we ended up being in rush hour. So someone managed to get us a helicopter because we couldn't miss this thing. There was about 800 kids waiting for us. We were to open this school pitch. Sean Edwards, myself, Brian O'Driscoll, and maybe Rob Carney was on this helicopter. So we did it. We got there in like 10 minutes. It was amazing that we were able to be there as at the time we were meant to be there. But, like, it's the worst PR disaster ever. We land and then tried to say, I totally understand your struggles, the pain. Like, some of these kids didn't have shoes. Some of them got one meal a day, and there's us like, we get it. Anyway, cheerio, we've got to get on this helicopter because we've got dinner waiting for us. Like, that was an amazing day. The way in which it happened perhaps could have been managed slightly better, but it was just an unbelievable tour. Like, lifelong friends, lifelong memories.
I was sort of hoping you're going to say, Hugo, that the guy that tackled you in the nightclub was Sean Edwards.
It wasn't, but I've got loads of stories. I've got loads of stories on Sean. Loads of stories on Sean. I'm not sure he thanked me for any of them, so perhaps we'll save it for a loose head podcast after dark or something one night.
Can I just ask you, Hugo? I'm a bit of a Lions freak. I just think the whole concept's brilliant. It, as you just said, you've got 1 foot in a professional area, 1 foot in the amateur area, and I think the Lions thing just transcends all that. It always will be like that, I hope. Yeah. And but just when you walk in and you've got these characters that, you know, they select them like, it's like going to Hogwarts, it seems to me. It's the rugby equivalent of Hogwarts. And when you get your jersey, it's the pinnacle, isn't it? It's got to be the pinnacle. How did you feel becoming a Lion?
Wow, that's a big question, isn't it? The team announcement day itself was a stressful day because you heard of stories of previous tours where they'd got letters or phone calls. And that didn't happen, so I didn't think I was selected. I knew I was in the running. Graham Roundtree called me about a month before, said, mate, you're very much in the frame. Just make sure the next 4 weeks the best 4 matches that you play. I was playing well at the time, I was confident, but you just never know because the Lions is this unicorn which you forever chase. It's remarkable. It's the most exclusive rugby club in the history of rugby. So the team announcement day, I remember we had a team meeting at Harlequins and they announced it live on Sky at 1:30. So we came out of the team meeting, went into our games room. TV was on and they went from fullback down. So I didn't have to wait that long. Mentioned the fullbacks and they said my name and a few lads like jumped for joy and was really chuffed. I think I did a quick fist pump, but at the same time, I was respectful, understanding that there was, I think, 3 or 4 other guys that were hoping to be selected, and I was the only one from Quins to be selected. So it was amazing, but you got to feel for your teammates as well, because I'd have loved to have talked to some of my teammates from Quins. But then you're back to reality because we had to go out and train. So went out and trained, came back to my phone, genuine. Never had so many texts, missed calls. I had about 300-400 text messages, hundreds of missed calls. I just got in the car, rang my mum. She was screaming down the phone. And I tried to text some other people, not whilst I was driving. And then went back to my house, and I just turned my phone off and just went to sleep. I genuinely was emotionally exhausted. I was flat out. It's just like, boom, just want to sleep. And that's what I did. So there was no big celebration, nothing like that. But then going into camp, and we were like surrounded by, I believe I was part of the last tour of the last set of legends that we had in the game. And I've mentioned a few of those. And I think from 2013 onwards is the new generation of legends. So I was thrilled to work and be a part and call guys, teammates who I felt were legends. And for me, I went on the tour to be a test lion, to do myself proud, to do country proud, but also to learn. Like, what a great opportunity. I've only had 6 caps before that moment, so I just wanted to learn. But then getting the test jersey, the night before the first test, we had our ceremony and handed out the jersey. It wasn't anything grand like anyone thinks, because once again, you're in that situation where there's a lot of disappointed people. So the geeker just hands out your jersey. There's a ripple of applause right at the end, and that's that. You shake the hands of the people in your position that weren't selected. As Shane Williams wasn't selected, he was World Player of the Year. And he was absolutely brilliant with me, as was Luke Fitzgerald. And I run to Jamie Roberts before the first test. And then we had to do a little player diary. And I said it on Instagram Live, but we both said, like, if tomorrow's the last game of rugby we ever play, then I'm okay with that, because we've got to wear the British and Irish Lions jersey. And that's how it felt. Yeah. And it was almost the last time I ever wore it after the first test. So I was glad to get another option or opportunity in that third test, and that felt like real redemption. That was that day, 4th of July 2009, third test match at Ellis Park. Yeah. Just blew me away.
Geach was right, I think, even at the level we've all played at, but in 30 years all you'll need is a look. I guess with the Lion, it's all you'll need.
100%. There's guys who I'll infrequently see, but as part of that tour, which is right, you just need a look. It's just there. It's unwritten, it's unspoken. But I think when you're a part of a team, and a very special team, and you've done everything you can to be part of that team, and then you've put absolutely everything into those 7 weeks away from your friends and family to achieve a common goal, like, of course you're set for life. And so that's why it's so unique as a challenge. That's why that shirt is so, so special, and quite clearly one of the best, if not the best, rugby moment of my life. But the tour, everything surrounding it, being part of it, is just phenomenal.
Because I was going to mention sort of the third test, Hugo. I mean, you just touched on the third test there. I don't think we need to go back to that. But the third test with the intercept, and sort of there's quite an iconic picture, I think, of you celebrating. You can see sort of the passion, the emotion on your face when you do celebrate. Was that just everything that you've spoken about culminating into one special moment for you?
Yeah. It's weird. I'd watch it for the first time a few weeks ago when Sky replayed it, and it felt weird watching it. It was on TV, and my missus was there. She's not really bothered about rugby, but I was like, she was like, "Is that you playing?" I was like, "Yeah, that's me." And I remember my first comment was, "Wow, like that stadium looks insane." It was weird thinking, that I played on that arena. I played in the stadium as big. Like it was nuts because I'm now just a fan of the game, right? And I've removed myself or dislocated myself the memories or the kind of perhaps the emotional feeling of being a player. So when I now look back on games of myself, I'm that fan watching a player that was me once upon a time. And it's quite nice to always be that child again and just be that fan. But yeah, that moment was insane because we're under loads of pressure. It was so important we got something out of that tour. We felt we deserved more. And like I said, like for me, redemption, it really felt like that. I needed that moment and score that intercept, score the try. And if you've ever been to Africa, or if you haven't been, go. As a fan, as a player, it's a remarkable place for rugby. It's rugby on a different level. It means something very different to them than it does to us. And that was shown in the Rugby World Cup final, actually, in terms of motivation. But to look around the stadium, and it was a sea of red, genuinely sea of red. They were outnumbered massively. Because in all the pictures, and I know the picture you talk about, majority of fans you can see are Lions fans.
Yeah.
And I reckon if I could have, I would have broken down and cried in that moment because it was just like, it's too much. You just scored for the Lions. You're doing it at Ellis Park. You've got tens of thousands of fans just there. And that, actually the most special moment was, and for me, what typifies the Lions was that you had Stephen Jones come over, Rob Kearney, Tommy Bowe, Ricky Flutie. So almost the representation of all the other nations come down. And then Stephen Jones, Rob Kearney, Tommy Bowe leave. And I've watched that footage. Ricky Flutie wouldn't let me go, just wouldn't let me go. And it was just so nice. He was just so happy for me, as I was for Shane Williams, who played in his last ever Lions match and didn't get to play in the first two. I was so happy for him when he scored. And it's your personal and individual agendas and goals go out the window because it's all about doing what's good for the team. And so that moment, that try will forever live with me. So special.
Yeah, and it's such a special moment in your career, Hugo. And obviously, you spent 13 brilliant years at Harlequins, and you were a one club man. And you mentioned before that you were tempted to leave in the early days, but when you did sort of hang up the boots for the final time, how special was it for you to realise how much you'd contributed to Harlequins? Because I know you did a really good piece on BT Sport recently with Chris Robshaw and talking about his career, and I guess you can take a lot of reflection on the same things he was talking about as well.
Yeah. I've not really reflected on my Quins career all that much. I don't know, like, I'm aware of the numbers. Like, I know I played 241 times, scored 89 tries. I know what trophies I've won, but to sit down and just immerse yourself in your thoughts and congratulate yourself doesn't, I don't know, that's perhaps something that I'll do when my kid's old enough and DVDs of the VHS of this era and whack them on and just watch a few tapes and hopefully she thinks Daddy was once upon a time like quite cool. But I loved my time at the Quins. It's why I stayed so long. And like, thank you for having me for so long, Quins. But yeah, I had some unbelievable moments, had some really special moments, had some bumpy times as well. But yeah, it's a place which I still love, but you move on. It's like anything. Like, to almost quote Chris Martin and Gwyneth Paltrow, we unconsciously uncoupled we consciously uncoupled a number of years ago, and you don't want to cling on to the past all too much because you want to look forwards. And I'm really excited about things I'm doing now and the things that I can achieve going forward. And I think retirement feels quite final, but I knew that I would hopefully achieve more when I retired than when I actually played. And since then, I got married, had 2 kids, entered a new career which I love. So I loved my time at Quins, right from the age of 18, being this skinny little runt who was quite fast and had good natural ability, to the guy who was clinging on at the end. It was an amazing journey, remarkable. and I'm still very good friends with lots of the players and lots of the staff. It's weird going back now, really weird going back now, because it's like seeing an ex-girlfriend, but you're on really good terms with. Like, you know, like it's a place I used to work, got great moments, but just can't have it anymore. Not saying I want my ex-missus, and my missus may or may not listen to this podcast, but just to make that very clear. But yeah, I've just got really fond memories.
And to kind of throw into your playing career before we go on to the media side of things, Hugo, you did obviously represent the Barbars as well, and he said on the Instagram Live that it was the best week of your career. If that's the exact direct quote, I'm not sure if it is, but what makes that Barbars experience so special?
It takes you back to the very essence and the reason why you wanted to play rugby in the first place, to be with your mates and to have fun. And the Barbars do that to quite a decent level, I think. You rock up, you get given your stash, and I don't care how old you are, everyone gets excited by stash. And once again, it's another iconic shirt. Everyone knows about the players that have worn that shirt, played for that club. And to do it, just as I had announced my retirement, and it was the second time I played the second tour I'd been on with the Barbars. I think I toured back in 2004 maybe, or 2006, something like that. But I'd never played with George Smith, funnily enough. Did play with him at club level, 111 caps. Unbelievable player, but what a legend of a bloke. Joe Rokothoko, I grew up watching him. He's now my teammate. It's nuts. Like, you can still be a fan, do you know what I mean? You can still get excited about some of the names that clubs sign or who then become your teammates. And we had so much fun. We went out, so we started in London. I took the boys out Saturday night, Sunday night, and then we flew to Belfast, I think. Arrived at the airport, the boys are drinking. I was like, oh my gosh, wow. Here we go. Don't want to be a bad lad, do you? So we're having a few beers. We had quite a good day that day. I think we played golf. Then Tuesday, we woke up, we had some training. We had a bit of a break in the afternoon. I remember speaking to George Smith because I was battling. I'm like struggling now, like, to go again. I was like, George, are the lads going out tonight? And he's like, yeah. I was like, oh, yeah, just making sure we're all up for it. I was like, but, you know, so we had a lot of fun off the pitch. And then to play my last game against England at Twickenham was a wonderful day. Obviously not the right result we wanted for the Barbarians, but if you've not done it, any professional rugby players are watching this, please, if you get the invitation, I mean, you'd be stupid to say no. It's genuinely one of the most fun and best weeks you'll ever have in your career. As a professional, you go week to week, pressure, analysis, a little bit of fun. The emphasis with the Barbars is about having fun, because as much as both about the lines and the challenges it's got, you've got 7 days to bring these nomads and make them look something like a team, put on the jersey and do it justice. So, yeah, brilliant experience.
Love to be a fly on the wall on one of those nights out with the Barbars.
Yeah, you'd write a good book. You'd be able to write a good book. That's for sure.
Because we asked Elton, the aunties, that question the other week who were on the podcast, and he just smiled and went, yeah, drinks were had. And that was it. He didn't go into any detail. He just said, yeah, we had a few drinks and that was it. But we didn't believe him for a second.
Yeah, drinks were had, multiple occasions.
And if you don't mind, Hugo, going on to kind of your work now, and Mark mentioned yesterday that kind of we were looking in terms of how you made that transition from playing rugby into the media. And I guess he mentioned sort of Alistair Eakin being quite an influence on you probably getting yourselves into the media role. I mean, how was that transition for you? Because you talked before about players who finish their careers and are not sure what they're doing, but media seem to fall right at your feet straight away.
Yeah, I more stumbled into it than planned for it. I signed my last contract aged 28, so 3 years. And I said to myself, if at the end of those 3 years my body feels great and I still want to play rugby and I think I can play high-level rugby, then I'm going to continue to do it. But if I can't, I want to look at what else I can do. So I looked at loads of things. And I'd always been interested in media. And Ali's a great friend of mine, but it was actually Nick Mullins that helped assist me, or at least plant the seeds. He messaged me because I'd done a couple of bits of BT, and he said, "Would you mind going for coffee?" So we met Cafe Nero on the London Road in Twickenham, sat down, and he said, "What are you planning to do when you retire?" I said, "I'm not sure. Got some options to stay at Quins, to move elsewhere in the Premiership, and to move to France. What do you think about that?" And he said, "Yeah, you could. How long do you reckon you could play for?" I said, "I honestly reckon I could play high-level rugby for another 2 years." And he said, "If you have a career in the media, I think it's going to outlast your rugby career. Have a think about it. See if you fancy it. I reckon you might be quite good at it." So that came into my last year of my contract, and I signed for 25 days with BT. And the first thing I wanted to know was, would I enjoy it? Would I enjoy it? Because I spent 14 years loving this career. So it's really important, whatever I went into, I loved. And the team at BT, and I'm not just saying this, and of course everyone expect me to say it, they're brilliant. We really get on well, and I think it's actually our biggest strength is how well we get on. And I loved it. I really enjoyed it. I've always liked my analysis, and it felt like the next best thing that I could do after playing rugby. And so that's kind of how I got into it. And my first job from retiring was working on the World Cup for ITV. So it was like quite a big job. And I was really excited until we played Australia, got bombed out, and all of a sudden you start to understand how the media works, because everyone thinks it's all about talking about tries and hyperbole and bigging up players, but there are the moments where you are really compromised. So having a microphone under your chin, and you've got 1 minute to answer a question as to whether I think Stuart Lancaster, who's my former England coach, should be sacked, and whether one of my best mates, Chris Robshaw, should have the England captaincy taken away from him, and it's the first job you're doing, you understand that you've got to respect the trade and the industry. So it was a baptism of fire, but I absolutely love what I do. I really do.
Because I was going to mention that kind of learning curve, Hugo, because I guess when you are in co-coms and you do see things like the 2015 World Cup, or maybe if it's in the Premiership now, where if Danny Kerr scores a winner at Sandy Park or Kingsholm, for example, and you do have those connections with those guys, but you've probably now learned, and you definitely have learned, sort of the balance between passion and emotions for your friends, but also delivering the analysis that the fans and the rugby public want to hear.
Yeah, the first year I found it hard. I was too close to the game, too emotionally invested. I hadn't been out of the game long enough, and so I always felt slightly compromised. But now I'm actually not that bothered. Like, if Danny's been crap, I'll say he's been crap.
Yeah,
because it's my job too, and I'm not being funny. His friendship don't pay my mortgage like BT do, so I've got a job to do. Like, when I'm in commentary and I've got a microphone in my hand, you're paid to do your job. You know, I can't go to the TMO. If someone asks my opinion, I can't go, can I refer that one? Do you know what I mean? So it's literally what you're paid to do, is to give an opinion. So at least I've thought about it. So I'm not fussed about that. I used to get bothered because almost guaranteed every single week a player will text me, "Why didn't you give me man of the match? Why did you say this? Why did you say that?" It happens every single week. And I'm happy to explain as to why, and you've got a job to do. The beautiful thing is, or the interesting thing is that every week someone calls me biased. So now I've been biased for every single team in the Premiership, which by definition makes you unbiased. But that's absolutely fine. But I totally understand as to why some people get frustrated, because the one thing I've learned is, I think as a commentator, especially when you want to talk positively about the game, you become a glory supporter. I want to talk about the best things that happen in the game and the team that dominate it. Because if I just pointed out every weakness and every frailty in defence or attack, I'm going to sound like a whingin. Instead, I'll talk about the team that are positive. So you do then end up becoming that glory supporter. And we talk about the perfect game, because we talk about, why did he make that pass? Why? How's he missed that? How's he not seen that? Why did he drop that? Why did he miss that tackle? So we talk about the perfect game, and part of that is to educate people as to why things happen and how rugby should look. That's not to say that I've never made those mistakes, but we have a duty to not only talk about the game analytically and be strong, to give an opinion, but also to educate people at home, because rugby is the second most technical sport in the world, and some of the laws are so backwards. So if I do a Six Nations game, we go back 2 seasons to England-Ireland, and I've got to explain to someone in 10 seconds how Henry Slade has thrown a pass 3 metres forwards, but it's not the butt is not deemed a backwards pass. So how Henry Slade can pass the ball forward 3 metres, but it's not deemed a forward pass, and it's play on the Johnny Maker goal to score a try. That's the level which we have to deal with.
And when you were sort of starting out, Hugo, I mean, you mentioned kind of the guys that you worked with before, like Nick Mullins and Ali, and obviously with Craig and Sarah as well. Did you sort of look for them for tips and hints, or was it kind of you learning a job as you go and thinking, actually, no, I'll use that next time and that kind of thing?
No, I was on the phone all the time, to my boss, to Craig, to Nick, to Ali, and to another guy called Rob Nothman, because as much as I enjoyed analysis and critiquing my own performances when I played rugby, I'm not, even now, I've only been in the game 5 years, I still don't have that critical analysis over what a brilliant performance looks like. Ali, Nick, I've worked with Miles Harrison, they've been in this game decades. And so I want them to tell me what I've done okay and where I've been really crap. And I don't mind it. The one thing I yearn for is feedback. And there's no point me getting on the phone for someone to say, oh, Hugo, you're brilliant. You're brilliant. But 3 years later, you don't get your contract renewed. Why? Well, you've actually been crap the last 3 years. We just haven't had the bottle to tell you. I need you to tell me now. That's the only way I'm going to get better. And fair play to those guys. They're amazing. They're absolutely brilliant. So I'm forever learning. I'm forever having sessions, watching other people and trying to pick up tips of how they do it really well. Because I look up to those guys because I think they're masters of their art.
Absolutely, Hugo. And I think maybe possibly one of the greatest bits of broadcasting you've done was actually that drop goal at the London Stadium. That went viral.
Such a funny day. And that was really Craig Dawn. We had Emily Scarrett as our guest, and she was talking about how playing at a football stadium as a kicker can be quite tricky because you don't have the same point references on the side of the pitch and everything else like that. And I said, Craig, I'll tell you what, Emily, I'm going to ask you this question, chuck us the ball, and I'm just going to try a drop goal. Never kicked one in my life, ever, before. And I didn't really care about the outcome, because if I spun at it and it went 50 yards left, it just would have been funny. Had I fallen over, it's funny. But to hit it as sweet as I did, and it to bisect the poles in the manner which it did, I think Joe Marlon looked over to what the heck just happened. It was, I don't know where that come from, but yeah, it was it's probably the best bit of work I've ever done for BT.
Play it so cool as well afterwards.
Mic drop.
Well, what you didn't see was obviously we went straight to break, but the pure panic that I dropped like a £3,000 microphone just to be cool on camera. So it was a case of have I actually broken this expensive bit of kit? But fortunately enough, it didn't. My boss was actually in the production truck, and I rang him straight after, said, "No, I'm going home. Whatever I say in commentary is never going to top that. So can I just go home now and just have a lie down and watch a game from home?" He obviously said no. I went up into commentary, probably fluffed my lines, but there we are.
Just finally, Hugo, in terms of sort of the media side of things, I mean, it might be quite a tough one for you, but what's kind of the best game or the best moment you've commentated on? Because I guess when the game's flowing, there's a real tempo and there's that energy in the stadium. You as commentators and Nick and Austin or Ben, who's working alongside, you must all feel that energy.
Yeah, I love it. There's nothing. I remember doing semi-final of the Premiership. I forgot what year it was, but when Exeter or Henry Slade kicked the ball into the corner with about 30 seconds to go, and then Exeter Chiefs set up their infamous driving maul and scored in the corner, because 2 minutes previous, I think Mike Ellery scored in the corner. We're like, well, that's the game. That's the game. In sport, you can't beat a last-minute winner. Think of Martin Tyler, Coventry, and the Aguero moment. You just can't beat it. So that was one of the most fascinating moments and one of the best moments to be in Coventry. And actually, those moments actually require very little commentary. And I learned a harsh lesson from Nick Mullins. I commentated at Toulon, and I think they played against Wasps or someone. It was in the Heineken Cup a few years ago. And another incredible moment from one of their Galacticos, scored another brilliant try. I've forgotten who it was and what the moment was. And I got so excited. The try was scored. And I just started talking. I was like, wow, what a moment that was. And then in the bar afterwards, Nick Mullins said to me, or straight after, maybe at half time, he said, if what you've got to say is better and more impactful than 25,000 screaming fans, then go ahead and say it. And sometimes the best bits of commentary is actually just being totally silent and just allowing the pitchers to do all the work. And funny enough, I actually went back and watched that Aguero goal just to pick up commentary tips. And if you ever get a chance to listen to it and watch it, do. Because he obviously says Aguero and then he's silent for 10 seconds. Because what can Martin Tyler say? What can he say or do that can depict a better picture than what you're watching? Because it's all about the atmosphere. It's about the Man City fans going nuts. It's about the flags. It's about the fact they've just won the Premier League. So the best moments are actually ones where you're silent. So you're not paid to be silent, of course, but it's picking and choosing those moments. But if I don't mind just adding to that, the best game I've ever been to, and unfortunately I wasn't working, was Scotland-Japan at the World Cup. Yeah. Historic day. Obviously Japan went on to win and managed to get into their first ever quarter-final. But I remember leaving the stadium, and this is where you go to certain countries and you learn lessons, and not just rugby lessons, but like life lessons and social lessons. As I was like leaving the stadium, and let's not forget, this was 24 hours after a super typhoon, the biggest typhoon they've seen in a quarter of a century. Historic moment for their nation, where I think their king or prime minister or whatever, someone from their biggest office in the country sat there, and they've got to their first ever World Cup quarter final. As we're all leaving, and there's jubilation and tears in equal measure, I saw there was queues of people, and I thought, wow, the bar's really busy, but they're not a massive drinking nation. And it was all the Japanese people queuing up to take their empty drinks, cups, bottles, and everything else, and there was queuing up at recycling points to put it in the bin. And I just thought, like, that's just remarkable. That's almost as remarkable as what I've seen on the pitch. And I'm not trying to overstate it, because our behaviours and the way in which we act, we've all done it. Like, I've done it shamelessly. Football, rugby, bought a burger, leave it on the floor. For them, it's just not acceptable. But their pride, or the pride which they take in their country, in every meaning of that word, it's just remarkable. How can you behave in such a way which we would almost consider abnormal in such an emotional moment, but yet still have the mental capacity to understand and know to do exactly what's right? I just love that.
Yeah, it's great to hear you talk, Hugo, about sort of the commentators letting the pictures paint the picture, if you like, because at BT Sport they do it so well with football. I mean, me, Mark, David, Robert are Liverpool fans, and you see You'll Never Walk Alone, and they let that play, and it just, and I mean, I'm not sure this is right, but we had a chat yesterday. Were you at the Barcelona game with Danny, or were you at another game with Danny?
I took Eddie Jones to it. So
right, that was it.
I was out in Japan with Eddie. We did some filming together, and we had a couple of beers one night, and we'll just talk about sports. I know he's a big football fan, and he says he really intrigued by Jurgen Klopp. And I went, right, I'll take you to a Liverpool match when we go. Fine, okay, sweet. ring BT. I was like, quarterfinals, or what was it, the quarterfinals? Barcelona?
Semi-final Barcelona.
Semi-finals. So I'd been to, because they played Roma earlier on.
The year before.
Or was that the year before? So I'd been to that, and I'm an Arsenal fan, but I'm in love with Anfield. So I went to Roma, and that was just a remarkable day. So I spoke to BT and said, can you get me a couple of tickets to the Barcelona match? I'd like to invite Eddie Jones. So I went there, took Eddie up, sat in the stands, and we had a lovely dinner beforehand. He's now sat in the stands, and you can see there's a few people around who like just double taking, just like he's a big dog, right? And these people know who Eddie Jones is. But anyway, everyone's really calm. Next thing you know, it's 3-3, and the bloke next to Eddie is picked him up and like jumping up and down, like hugging him. And he's like, now he's talking to Eddie Jones and he's having the time of his life. And then obviously they go on and they win the match. You're just like, this is it. But people in the crowd are just getting a bit rowdy. So I was like, Eddie, let's get you back into the box, take you out of harm's way, just sit down, let's just have a beer, just cool off. So I take Eddie into the box and we all just sat there. And in fact, during the game, I said to Eddie, if we could develop, when I say we, not me, but if we rugby could create an atmosphere like Anfield, England would never lose at home. They would never lose at home, 100%. So we're just talking about all these things and how much he loves football. We had such a good conversation. We continued it in the box, and I just put my head out because I could still see people there were chanting and singing. And actually, the other thing I said, I wish the people that were at, all the staff at rugby, actually were massive rugby fans. Because after that game, the stewards, the hostesses, the waiters, the waitresses were all crying their eyes out. It just means more. It just means more. How can we get that in rugby? So I went back out, and the hostess and the security staff all crying their eyes out. And that was the moment where they're all singing "You Never Walk Alone" to the cop. And so, as much as I was trying to do a good thing by Eddie Jones, he was sat in the box. I was out there with my camera phone, just watching this historic moment. Came back in, I was like, guys, you'll never guess what you just missed. What is it? I was like, oh, no, it's fine, I got it on my phone. Got it on my phone? Why didn't you call us like 3 minutes ago whilst I was singing it to the cop end? But yeah, it was amazing to be able to take it. And actually to hear from Eddie, who said that was the best sporting event he's ever been to in his whole life. He's been in 2 World Cup finals, 3, sorry. He's won 1. You know, he's been around rugby for a long, long time. He's done some pretty special things, but it just goes to show what a special place Anfield is.
Absolutely. I think we can all echo that, can't we, guys?
Yeah, indeed.
Oh, yeah.
Brilliant to hear your memories and your stories, Hugo. But I think now it's time for the most important part of this podcast, and it is your 15 to take on the Martians on Mars. So, Mark, over to you.
Just before we get into it, my best mate and I, Barrel, we played together for 1,000 years, and we have a phrase that we only have for each other, which is something happens and it obeys every single law of rugby. We just call it rugbiness. And I think we've just had an hour and a half of utter, unashamed rugbiness from Mr. Rugbiness. So, and this I love the Lions chat. I love the Barbarians chat. I love the fact that players can be as professional off the scale as they can be. But we should never lose sight, and I hope it never loses, the reality of why whatever brought us down to the rugby club age 7, 8, 9, 10, kicking and screaming, and that odd transition we go through to we need it more than it needs us for a while.
Yeah.
And then when we retire, we look back, and this whole Mars 15, we can all pick our best 15, and that's great, but it's not based on sheer talent. You talked earlier about hard work will almost get you in the changing room. Talent will get you in the changing room, but hard work will keep you there. And I think this Mars 15 captures something else. But the basic principle is this, Hugo. And you've got 1,000 stories, which I could listen to forever. Mars have landed on Earth. They've challenged us to a game of rugby to settle the age-old score of who owns Earth. The winner saves civilization. The shuttle leaves tomorrow. That's Saturday. It's 4 weeks to get to Mars. we've got to pick a 15 to take the field. You're only allowed 3 subs. And then you're allowed to take a water boy and a kit man, a manager and a coach. And I think Ugo Monye's Mars 15 will be something to behold.
I hope so. I've made this one slightly bespoke. I've made this Mars 15 out of players that I've played with, because I didn't want to go cliche. Jonah Lomu, of course, he was one of my idols. I looked up to him and absolutely adored him. He's rugby's first ever superstar. I'm fortunate enough to meet him once. So I just wanted to make it a bit more personal, because you can just pick anyone and everyone and live in that fantasy. And I guess this is a game that will almost definitely not happen. But if it was, I would like to select some players that I know that I've gone to battle with. But just quickly, just on your point about losing that rugby essence and how it can slightly get distorted when you go through the different age grades and all the rest of it. But during this pandemic, people have really understand what health is for health's sake. I think you get to any bit of like sunny weather, you get through Easter, and people start to try and get fit. Let's get fit for Marbella or Beachbody Red. And you see all these slogans, Instagram influencers which wind me up. People have tried to get healthy because they know it's good to be healthy, period. So people have now got into a good routine and pattern of whether it's going for a walk, taking the dog out, going for a run, 5K challenge, 3K challenge, whatever it is. And as much as we're all desperate to see the professional game back on our screens and supporters back in stands, I do hope that people's awareness to how good it is to be healthy means that we get a greater footfall into grassroots clubs. If you have been going out for weekly jogs, twice weekly jogs, whatever it is, get down to your local rugby club. If you're a fan of rugby, it's never too late. Just get down there and just get yourself hardwired back into what it is to be a team. Because anyone that's ever picked up a rugby ball, anyone that's been in and around a rugby environment knows exactly how special it is. So I do hope that some of the behaviours and habits that people have picked up means that we do see an uplift at the grassroots game and in the local game as well.
Here, absolutely.
Okay, so my 15, comprising of people that I've been fortunate enough to play with. At Loosehead, I've got Jason Leonard. I mean, fairly self-explanatory. The fun bus, a long tour. I just think it'd be unbelievable value, right? At hooker, Keith Wood. One, because he's just a legendary player, but also the impact he had on my career, and I'll forever tell it, was just phenomenal. I joined Harlequin in 2001. He was the world's best player, and he was injured. I was injured, and he took me under his wing, a hooker and a winger, training together for 6 months. He didn't have to do it, but he had every ounce of humility and every moment of the day just to sit down and talk to me and help me, guide me, and talk to me about what work ethic was. He is an utter legend. So Keith Wood, straight in at hooker. At tight head, Phil Vickery.
Yeah.
Not just because he's a brilliant rugby player and a top bloke, but if we need someone just to whip up a sourdough bread or anything like that as a master chef, I think it'd be phenomenal. Martin Johnson, how can you not?
Yeah.
Alan Wynne-Jones, how can you not? At number 4, so Martin Johnson, Alan Wynne-Jones is their second rows. Number 6, really torn on this. Got Chris Robshaw.
Yeah.
And Tom Croft. The reason I mentioned Tom Croft is because if not for injury, he'd go down as one of the best rugby players or the best back row players to ever play for England.
Yeah.
And a phenomenal tourist, incredible athlete, wonderful rugby player. At number 7, from a Barbarians perspective, George Smith.
Yeah.
So wasn't he Player of the Year in the Super Rugby for like 10 consecutive seasons or something like that?
I think
Like,
so, yeah.
who does that for the Brumbies? Yeah, who does that? So him at number 7. At number 8, Nick Easter, the man of my own heart, old school.
We should pause now. Sorry. Carry on with Nick Easter.
Oh, sorry. Nick Easter, man of my own heart, old school, unbelievable on a booze up. He's always been like a social sec judge in charge of the end of season, like montage. And I'm not talking like narrated by David Attenborough, like the biggest mick taker out of all of us. So he's there, but I also put in brackets Andy Powell as well, because how could you not? And I've got a great story in him, but there we go. So yes, that's my pack. Any questions on the pack?
No questions whatsoever.
No questions. Can't argue with that, Hugo.
No.
Okay, decent pack. We were talking earlier, Chris, about being unbiased and how tough that is in commentary. Well, I've got Danny Kerr at number 9. So there we go. At number 10, Andrew Mertens.
Ooh.
Like a wizard, a magician, and an old school character who's a brilliant tourist. So I've got him. At 11, I've got Joe Rocafoko. But I've made an exception for 2 other guys who are both in brackets just because I just had to give them honourable mentions. Siv Vivatu was the best winger ever played against. And Rapeni Thautha was the best winger on natural talent that ever played the game. But Rocafogos in it because the strict guidelines of players that I've played with. At 12, Mike Tyndall, because if we were ever in like real trouble, he could just ring his grandmother-in-law, our queen, and just bail us out. So got to have Tins in there. Brian O'Driscoll.
Yeah.
Mercurial talent, one of the best 13s to ever play the game. At 14, got Christian Wade.
Yeah.
/ Martin Afire. I'm just trying to nick. I know he played like Union for like one season or 2 seasons at Wasps, but he's probably one of the best finishers in either code. And we always get confused all the time. Whenever he's at Twickenham and people ask him if he's Hugo, whenever I'm up north, I get asked, are you Martin Afire? So I had to say him. And at 15, Mike Brown, the fiercest competitor and the angriest man. And whether you're a human being or an alien, he's having you. So that's my 15. What do you make of that?
I love it. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love
Yeah,
it.
brilliant.
O'Driscoll gets in everyone's.
I think he's been in every one, hasn't he?
He's got to be.
He's got to be, yeah.
I watched the 09 series, and as much as we had structures and plans and plays and this and that, it effectively, at points, it was just give him the ball, just let him do something. Yeah. And he's the hardest person, I think, from a coaching perspective. So parents or kids will watch videos and be like, how did he do that? And I'm like, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. And if I was to ask him, he would say it was just instinct. So he's one of those guys it's hard to extract that information from, because when you ask him, he's like, I just saw a gap and I just sidestepped 5 people and scored a try. You're like, okay, cool. Put that in the coaching manual, please.
He did an awful lot of that with the weight of captaincy as well, which didn't seem to weigh heavy on him at all.
People forget he was captain of Ireland 87 times.
Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah.
Which is just remarkable to play. Was it 137 test matches? I think it was. He's a proper warrior, but we can talk about his creativity and his mercurial ability, but like he had such a big heart, like genuine, never say die attitude. It was the undoing of him in the second test when he got knocked out, banged Danny Rousseau, should have come off the pitch.
Yes.
Should have been off the pitch at that point. Never wanted to leave the field. He fought way above his weight, like a proper hero, proper champion, proper warrior.
Who's your captain of that team, Hugo?
Ooh, my gosh. Wow. Well, Tids has got a hotline to the Queen. I'd want to give it to him, and he's a great lad for a social, but I don't know. I think I need someone fairly unassuming. I mean, I could easily give it to Mark Johnson, but could I give it to George Smith?
George Smith. Nobody would argue with that.
No.
No.
You wouldn't argue with many of them, in fairness. I'll give it to George Smith.
George Smith.
I did pick a bench, but I did pick support staff. So my coach, for two reasons. Well, I've got two guys there. One's Michael Jordan. One, because he's got history of aliens, as we've seen in Space Jam. Like, he knows how to defeat them. He's done it once, he could do it again, and he's the GOAT. But then I thought, with this team, loads of egos, you just need someone who's just happy just to get on and do their job. So I thought of Steve Kerr, his teammate, who is a legend. But I'm going to Jordan because it's Michael Jordan. His coach, Waterboy's Will Smith, to continue the Aliens theme, Independence Day.
Yes.
Once again, he's been there and done it. But also his triple threat as entertainer. He's an actor, he's a singer, and he's, what was the other thing? And he's comedian. Sorry. So triple threat, I think he offers a huge amount as Waterboy. He's got experience, he's got intellect of how to defeat the aliens. Team manager, Bear Grylls. Sorry. You know what I mean? He's taken some of the most famous men to remote places and they've survived. And if he can be trusted with Barack Obama up a hill and with zip wires, he can take lead of this team. So Bear Grylls is team manager. And the kit man, the only caveat, or I guess the only thing that I need to bear in mind is that the kit man, as much as they are the lifeblood of the team, this kit man isn't. I'd like to think out of every team member I've selected, whether it's backroom staff or playing staff, that they are all on the same level playing field, that they're very much needed and can provide a huge amount of entertainment, intellect, rugby value, and just be a good bloke. This kit man is none of those. And my theory is that we'd go to space and we'd just lose him, because Earth could actually do with a lot less people like him. So with that, it's Donald Trump. I would love to see him pick up my pants, sweaty socks, sort our kit out, us go to Mars, and just leave him there. The world doesn't need one Donald Trump. And some of the things he said, or lots of things he says and tweets, are just utterly vile. But in a weird way, he is an inspiration that to many people, I think, around the world, is that you don't have to be all that intelligent, all that well, I guess, yeah, you don't have to be that intelligent or actually know what you're doing to reach the very top. So if people want to take inspiration from that, fair enough. But yeah, Donald Trump could be our kit man, and we can order him about, and he can do all our dirty work.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Thank you.
I'd love to see Will Smith, Martin Johnson, and Donald Trump having a chat. Right, some combination, Hugo. I'm not going to lie. Great team, Hugo. And I mean, we've chatted for so long, and it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the Loose Heads podcast, Hugo, to reflect on your career, but obviously talk about your involvement with Loose Heads. And I know the guys are so proud to have you as an ambassador. So thanks very much for your time. No, thank you. Thank you for having me. And the only reason I wanted to be a part of Loose Heads is not because of what I can bring or offer, is because of the foundation you've set up. And I mean that in metaphorically as well as the reality of it. You know, I think people and the ambassadors which you've got aligned with it, the impact you have, all that work was done long before
I got involved, Sean Edwards, Gareth Anscombe, or any other ambassadors, or some of the people that come on the on Instagram or social media or on your podcast. So the work which you've done, the foresight you had to see an area which really need targeting, reaching out and speaking about is unbelievable. So thank you guys for setting it up, for impacting loads, and I'm honoured to be a part of it.
Brilliant.
Brilliant, Hugo. Thank you.
Well, we'll let
Cheers,
Hugo
guys.
get off and get a well-deserved gin and tonic. Ron, Mark and
Yes.
Dave, thank you as always. Dave, anything you want to add in terms of admin or stuff this week?
Cheers, Chris. Just get yourselves over to looseheads.co.uk and get yourselves 10% off with code POD at checkout.
Perfect. Well, many thanks to Hugo again. We're all off to get a nice alcoholic beverage. Enjoy your Friday. Thanks very much for listening. And this has been another Loose Heads podcast in association with Talking Rugby Union.